Hello everyone and welcome to my coloring corner. Today is Tips and Tricks Tuesday and it's the final watercolor type of thing that we're going to do for the month. And we're going to be working with the Tempura paint sticks. These are Craft Smart. And I have two different sets here. Of course, they are different colors. There's a couple of duplicates, but different shades, that sort of thing. So I've got a 32 set of those. And I've already started a little bit here. Oh, and I just made a mess of it because it's still a bit wet, so that I could show you what we were doing. This page that we're going to be painting is actually a coloring book page out of Dawn Boyer's Compass Roses. And we're going to actually paint it on watercolor paper and basically trace it. We're going to use a light board to show the picture, and we're going to paint it on the watercolor paper. The paper that I'm going to be using is cold pressed watercolor paper. It's this paper here. It is a 300 GSM, so it's a very, very thick watercolor paper. I have taped it down so that it doesn't move around, because I don't want to move the picture underneath it. So we're going to do this a couple of different ways, because there's a couple of different ways that you can use these paint sticks. You can use them with or without water, depending upon how bright you want them. So we've got this set here, which has white, some fluorescent colors, yellow, red, deep pink, deep green, purple, gold, silver, a deeper purple and black. And then we have this set, which also has a yellow and an orange in that, but without the fluorescence, if I can get it out of the box. So this set has, of course, white, pink, red, orange, yellow, green, seafoam green, blue-green, blue, dark green, dark blue, a dark purple, the browns, black, and gray. So those are the paint sticks that we have. These were purchased at Hobby Lobby, actually for another project that never happened. So I figured I can paint with these. So let's paint with them. So I'm going to put those over there. Now I'm going to turn the light board on so you can see the picture that we're working on. And as you can see through the light board, you can see all of the details of the picture. And that's what we're looking for, is the ability to see the details and then go over the paper to color it in. Now, one of the ways that we can do this, of course, is with a paintbrush, just a regular paintbrush, directly from the paint stick. So I'm going to take the paint stick that I was working on here, which is the purple, light purple, and we're going to just go directly from that paint stick. And as you can see, I'm just going directly from the paint stick onto the brush. Now this is fast drying, so you have to be fairly quick once you get it on the brush to get it on your paper this way. And this would work really well for doing things without lines. I don't know if I like this brush though. It's not very stiff, and I prefer it to be a little bit stiffer when I'm following lines, when I'm trying to follow a line. So, because I prefer it a little bit stiffer, and I should have grabbed a bottle of water, and I didn't because this said that it doesn't need water. Well, to me, it needs water. Let's see. This one's a little bit stiffer, but it's also a little bit bigger, and I really don't want bigger. So, hold on 2 seconds. Reach into my handy dandy drawer of paintbrushes here. Now, of course, you can also go directly from the paint stick and do it that way as well onto the paper and onto your sorry about that. I'm just trying to find the one I'm looking for here, and I'm not finding it, and it's probably in a different, yeah, it's probably in a different spot. Not a big deal. And I thought I had it out, and it seemed to not be out, so not a big deal. I'll show you the one that I prefer to be using anyway. So another thing that you can do in order to extend it a little bit is, of course, use a water brush. You don't need to use water with this, but you can. So if you just go across the tip with your brush, it gives you the ability to, of course, paint with it. Now the water in the water brush will keep that wet a little bit longer and give you a more working time with it. So you're not you're not having to rush so much. Now you can put this on a paint palette and go at it that way. It gives you more paint that way. Or, like I said, you can go directly from the tip. You can also use these dry, just like you do with the King Art. However, these are a little bit stickier than the King Art. So I'm going to show you how to do this on the palette. Of course, you just take your paint palette, you extend your paint stick out, and you just lay it down. Just like a lipstick. And you twist it back in, put the lid on it because it is fast drying, and it will dry really quickly if you don't put the lid on it. And then just load up your brush and continue to work from the brush. And like I said, with this being a water brush, that little bit of water that the water brush puts out as you're painting will extend the dry time, so it becomes workable for a little bit longer than if you didn't use a water brush. Now I'm just going to press that down so you can see it a little bit better, so that we can see the lines. I pulled it tight, but obviously I didn't pull it tight enough. So what you do when you're using a light board like this is you lay your picture down, and then you lay your watercolor or whatever paper on top that you want to trace into. And you can do this several different ways. You can draw what you're coloring and just draw it right on there using the light board. Or you can do what I'm doing here and just paint and use the lines from the picture itself and go in afterwards with your dark pen and copy those lines afterwards. That is completely up to you on which way you would prefer to do it. I want to put the lines in afterwards because if I go over a line, I can eliminate that overage with the inked line. So if I make a big old mess of it, I can at least correct it with the inked line later, if that makes sense. So I'm just filling in this part here with this purpley color, and then I'm going to go back over it after it's dried a bit with a deeper purple, and then I will go through and add detail and shading and all that fun stuff. And as you can see, this brush is a little bit too thick for these finer details, so I'm just trying to be really, really careful. And I need a little bit of water because that's drying out a little bit. So just one little drop of water is all I needed to wake that paint up again so that I can move it a little bit freer. And like I said, this is really thick watercolor paper. So hopefully it can withstand the watercoloring. Sometimes even watercolor paper warps, and that's why I've got it taped down. So not only can I keep that picture from underneath from moving, but so that if it does start to curl or pucker, I've got it taped down so it doesn't do it while I'm painting it. And if you missed the bonus video for today, it is the flip through of the book that this picture is from. And it's a wonderful nautical book called Compass Roses. And it's a beautiful book. So once again, I'm just putting a little bit of pressure so that I can see the details that I'm painting, because I did not tape it down tight enough to keep those details visible. That's my fault. So. And after I'm done this part, I will show you how it looks with the light off, so you can see the design in its without it all of its lines, because I think that's really cool too when you can just see the color. And just see the shape of it. Sometimes you don't want to do that because sometimes you've made a big old mess, and it's easier to show it after the big old mess is cleaned up, but I don't care. This is almost as new to me as it is to you you will also. What I bought these paints for was to actually paint a gnome that had gotten weathered and broken. So I was trying to repair it and brighten her colors up a bit. But unfortunately, she was just too broken. I couldn't repair her. And she was made out of fiberglass and all sorts of things that I just don't want to mess with. So unfortunately, she did not get repaired. Okay, so we've got a little bit more down here. I'm just going to get the last of the stuff that's on the palette. And we're going to finish this area here. Now, of course, you can use any brush for this. I prefer the water brush because, like I said, it does add a moisture to it, and it thins down the color just enough that you can add more color to it after it dries, as well as blend colors together because it doesn't dry as quick as if you were to use it straight from the pen stick, whatever you want to call it. Now, I am very, very new to watercolor as well as you guys. This is not something that I do every day, and it's not something that I'm extremely proficient at. And I could be doing this very, very wrong. I don't know. But it's fun. And it's fun to learn, especially when I have you guys to learn with me. So, okay. Just making sure that I get all of the little areas and details in. Like I said, as it dries, you can go over it and wake up some of that paint that's a little bit thick in an area, but a little thin in a different area. Or you can darken it up a little bit. Okay, so, and of course, I did not think before I started. Oh, that was close. And did not get a glass of water in order to rinse these with. What a silly me. All right, so as you can see, that is the start to our design. And without the lines, it still looks just like the design. I'm going to put you on a very, very brief be right back, and I'm going to grab a glass of water so that I can rinse the brushes. All right, guys, I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. My be right back is quicker than me. All right, so I've got a glass of water here and I've got a touch of painter's soap in it. And all painter soap is a little bit stronger than dish soap, so that it removes the paint from the brush without any problems. Just stirring that up. And I'm going to take my handy dandy roll of paper towel, if it doesn't run away from me, and I'm just going to dry off this brush. All right, so we've got this one done, and we're going to actually take a darker purple, and we're going to go in and we're going to give this some of the detail. More. No, just that one. Okay. And we're going to give it some of the detail, some of the you know what I mean, the shadow and all that fun stuff. So we're going to take this one, which is a darker purple, and we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to scribble it onto the palette. And I'm doing this on the palette because I want to be able to extend how long I use it. So I want to be able to activate it with a bit of water and extend its use time, because it will dry. It does dry very quickly, so they say. I haven't had any issues with it drying as of yet with using the paintbrush, the water brush. So, but I can definitely see how it would dry quickly if you didn't have that water. All right, so we're going to stretch this down again just to get that line showing. And this is a little bit too dry. There we go. So we're just going over and doing the shadow areas from where the lines meet. The areas that you would see different shadows, just the same as you would with your colored pencils. But instead we're using a paintbrush and paint and that sort of thing. Now, another thing that is going to be happening here on Tips and Tricks Tuesday is I have had a few requests on doing a beginner's walkthrough on different things on how to start with colored pencils and what sort of things to do while coloring with colored pencils for a beginner. And this will hopefully help quite a few people who have asked on different techniques and different understanding what your book needs and what pencils are best suited for the media that you're using. So if you're using, say, a coloring book on Create Space paper, we'll take a look at the different things that can be used on Create Space paper. And of course, it's different for everybody, but it will at least give you a bit of a guide on what to look for when you're coloring, so that you know, okay, this pencil isn't working because of this. It's not because of me. It's very rarely because of the artist or colorist. It's most of the time a mixture of knowing the right tools for the right media. And sometimes that's a difficult thing to determine. So I will do my best to help with that and help understand that, um, as well as shadows and light sources and stuff like that. I still get my shadows and light sources wrong. So, you know, you don't have to worry too much about it. Um, Basically, what I have figured out is, depending upon if there is a light source in the picture, where that light is coming from. Another thing that is a huge telltale sign, especially with grayscale coloring, is where the gray is in the shadow. So your light source is opposite. Yeah, we're getting too dry here again. This purple really wants to dry out very, very much. This darker purple really, really wants to be dry. Now, sometimes you can just follow the lines and be able to have it look nice. Sometimes you can't. I have troubles with it looking nice. That's probably why I don't do a lot of watercolor, because I really, really am not fantastic at it. And to me, it just doesn't look right half the time. But I just keep playing with it, and one of these days I'll get down and get really good with it, and then I'll be happy with it, just like I am with pencils. And that's all it is, really, is practice, perseverance, and knowledge. You know, sometimes it's just getting to know your paper and figuring out what the best paper is to use and what is the best pencil to use on the paper you're using. Because some paper is very, very good with Prismas, but they're terrible with Faber-Castells. Some paper is okay with Faber-Castells and oil-based pencils because they're a harder lead, but the Prismacolors seem to just mash into the paper and don't look like anything. So it all depends upon the paper, it depends upon the book, it depends upon how you're using it, and that sort of thing. There are certain techniques, of course, for each pencil or each type of pencil and how those are colored with. For example, layering, scrubbing, stuff like that. I don't know a lot about that. I do know how to use my pencils and how to best color with them for me. And I will show you what I know for me, and hopefully it'll work for you. If it doesn't, take what I teach you or what you pick up from me, and just make it your own. Do your own thing with it. That's the only thing really I can suggest, and I will definitely walk through it all and do my best to help out in any way I can. But pretty much the only thing I can really do is tell you how I do it, and hopefully it will help. Because I am not a professional in any sort of form of the word. I am a colorist just like all of you, and fairly new at it. Well, not like yesterday new, but I don't know everything, that's for sure. But I will teach you what I know. So we're just going through and putting in those shadows, adding a bit of a deeper purple to different areas. You know, spreading around a little bit of the harsher lines so that we're breaking them down a little bit and making them a little bit more fluid. Okay, I'm going to grab a little bit more of that deep purple. And we're just going to go back in here. I keep on pressing on it so I can see where the design is. And on the design is some grayscaling. So it tells me where this darker color should be approximately for those shadows. And that's another thing that you can definitely do if you're just starting out and you're trying to figure out shadows and light sources and stuff like that. And this is one of the things that I did, is I got into grayscale and started looking at where the artists themselves put that shadow, where they put that light source, because the artist knows what their mind's eye saw when they drew the picture. So they will definitely be the first one to know where that light source is coming from. So if you get into grayscale as well as line art, it will give you quite a leg up, so to speak, and a bit of a knowledge of where the artist saw that. Another thing that I enjoy doing, and I tell people all the time to do, is the artist will have a website where they have their original work, especially if they color their original work. For example, Selena Finish or Molly Harrison or Christine Caron. All of these people are true artists and have colored renditions of their work on their own websites. And you can definitely go take a look at that and be aware of what they were thinking when they colored it, what they were thinking when they created the piece, and that sort of thing. But as you can see, we're almost done with this part here. We've added the purple, darker purple, to give it that shadow, to give it that detail. as well as to give it a bit of those lines that the black line is missing because of the um, the paper, is because I'm not coloring directly on the paper. Now I've added almost a little bit too much of the water on here, but we'll work with it. So I'm just going back over into the tempera paint that I've got on the palette and loading up the brush with as much paint as I can to get it fairly dark so that I can come in to this area here where those dark corners are. And I'm trying really hard just to make it a flowing fluid motion. Without making it too much of a harsh line, because that is not what the artist had intended with the flowy visualization of this drawing area here, because it's all very curly and flowy. And I'm just giving a little bit of movement from the stem area. And putting in a couple of shadows. All right, so I think that's fairly close to what I want it to be. And basically what you need to do is you just need to leave it alone and let it dry. So I'm going to turn off the light so you can see what it looks like. So that is what we're at so far. Now I will of course be continuing this process until this whole picture is done. We're going to change colors here and go into the greens for the leaves. And I'm going to grab a dark green as well as the light green. And we're going to do this exactly the same way we would color a normal leaf. And we're going to, of course, start with our light. Because this is paint, we're going to start with our light and go to our dark. Normally, especially with grayscale, I would go with the dark and first and then move into the light. But because we're working with paint and I don't want to wash away too much of the dark, I'm going to go with the light first and then go from there with the dark. Now, just going to use an actual paintbrush here, and I'm just going to load it up with as much of this light paint as I can. And we're just going to go directly over. And like I said, this does dry really, really quick. So if you don't use water with it, you may find that it dries too quick to get done what you're trying to do. If that happens, just go directly to the paint pen itself, with your dampened brush, load it up with as much paint as you can, and add it to the paper. Now, another thing that you can do, especially with large areas like this, and I'll show you here in a second. I just want to get this part done so that it doesn't look all blotchy and whatnot as it dries. Now, another thing that I have learned with working with paint, especially, as well as water-based markers and stuff like that, is you have to keep everything directional. You can't go over and over an area and in opposite directions. I find that if you do that, you end up with weird lines, and that just is no good. Okay, so on half of this leaf, as you can see, it's a leaf, we've got the light green already down. Now on this other half, I'm actually going to just color it in with just the straight paint stick. Now I'm not going near any other areas, just on the inside of the leaf area here. And then I'm going to move it around with the paintbrush. Now, the only thing with doing it this way that I would suggest, of course, is to wet your brush and to make sure that you can see the whole picture. I didn't put this down tight enough, obviously, so that I can see the whole leaf. Now, doing it this way, it makes the paint thicker and a little bit harder to move. But if it's something that you're doing freehand, like if you're doing a background or that sort of thing, you can definitely do that and freehand it with it. Now I'm using a bit of water here just to thin it down and move it around, because it's not very cohesive with the other side. So we're just spreading it a little bit just to get that same look as on the other side of the leaf. I'm trying not to get into the rose there. Okay. And still come to the very edge of that leaf with the color. Now, doing it directly from the paint stick itself, you're going to get a brighter color every time because it's more paint on the paper. If you take your brush and go directly from the stick, you're going to get a bit brighter than if you're going to add it to the paint palette and add water to lift it, because it's just the way it is putting the pigment directly on the paper. However, when you do it that way, it dries really fast. So you have to work really fast to get it moved around. And I'm not very good at this, so I'm not moving as fast as you would need to move to get that paint moved around to get it covered properly and in a good way. So I prefer to go directly from the paint palette to the paper. Just to show you here. So there's our leaf and our frilly thing behind it. I'd say branches or other flowers, but yeah, I didn't color them the same color as branches, so I'm just going to call them wonderful little filaments behind. And of course, you can take your brush if you find an area that looks a little bit too hard or a little bit too harsh, and just clean it up a little bit. You can definitely do that with paint a lot easier than you can with, say, marker. Now, another thing I wanted to show you, but we're not going to have a lot of time to do that today. Maybe on Work in Progress Wednesday we will do that. Is after I've got the paint down, I want to show you how you can work on a watercolor painting with colored pencil without putting water or making your colored pencil wet, because you can definitely do that. It just takes a little bit of know-how on how to do that without ruining your colored pencil and without ending up with your color pencil becoming a watercolor, because you don't want that. And some color pencils, they are seeming to end up without enough binder in them so that they are ending up more like a watercolor, and that's not good. So especially for people that do a lot of mixed media work. So I had some requests on showing how to best do anything with a watercolor without burning your pencil coloring. And the best way to do that, of course, is to do your watercoloring first and then do your pencil coloring over top. So if I, for example, just wanted to color these parts, the little doodads here, the scrolls and that sort of thing, with the fluidity of watercolor or paint, because this is a tempera paint, but want to do the roses as colored pencil, I would do this part first, let it dry, spray it with my fixative so that when I do come back over it and end up rubbing something with my hand, because that is bound to happen, it doesn't rub it all off and it doesn't get water on my colored pencils that may or may not run because I've got too much water on the page, or I've gone over the line a little bit with my paintbrush. So I will show you on Wednesday some of that process. And well, it's not really a process, it's a theory more than anything else. I think that's all the time we have for today. Of course, these sorts of things take a lot of time. The light board is something that you can buy off of Amazon fairly inexpensively. I personally bought this one for next to nothing on Wish for really, really cheap. But they do have them on Amazon for quite inexpensive prices as well. Make sure that you use a painter's tape or an artist tape when you tape things down. The Craft Smart Tempura paint sticks I did find at Hobby Lobby, and I will leave a link to those as well. And maybe they have them on Amazon. If not, I will leave a link to Hobby Lobby. However, I don't know if Hobby Lobby delivers. I don't know. I've never actually ordered anything from there. But I will go through and I will continue to paint the areas that I want to paint, and we will add some colored pencil afterwards. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and how to use the Tempura paint to color a coloring book page on a watercolor paper. This watercolor paper is so thick that it wouldn't go through my printer. And that's why I suggest using a light board behind it, because what it does is it gives you the ability to see through the watercolor paper and follow the lines that the artist has put out for you in the coloring book. Another thing that we're going to take a look at on Wednesday as well is watercolor pens, like markers, different types of watercolor pens that aren't paint. They are a water-based marker. And we're going to play with a couple of those as well, and all sorts of things to finish this picture off, and how to work with those in your coloring books. So those things I will go over with you on Wednesday, which is Work in Progress Wednesday, as I finish this and move on to other things in our coloring books. So with the tip for today is, if you're going to use a watercolor paper that is a cold pressed or hot pressed watercolor paper. Hold on a sec, let me move this out of the way here just for a moment so I don't put this on top of the area that I've painted. So this is the watercolor paper that I'm using. This is a cold pressed 300 GSM watercolor paper. This is a block. So all of the pages are stuck in, but you can easily tear them out. It is a thick, thick paper, as you can probably see there. One side is textured and one side is not. I am using the side that is not textured, and the side that is textured is up against the picture. What I did, because this paper is the same size as the picture, is I just made it equal, laid it down onto the work surface, and taped it down. I tried to tape it down as tight as I could, but I missed a couple of spots, so it ended up putting a couple of bubbles in it. Not a big deal. I can still see what I'm working on behind it. The light on the light board goes up really high, so it gives you a fantastic visual while you're working of where your lines are and that sort of thing. Let your tempera paint dry before adding any other media. And as you can see here, you can tell I didn't pull it tight enough because it is bubbling there, because I added a lot of water to move that tempera paint. Now this area here that I didn't use a whole lot of water because I lifted it with the water off of the palette isn't bubbled at all. So you have to be careful how much water you put on any paper. It's going to warp and curl if you don't have it treated or don't have it pulled down really tight. But what we're going to do is I'm going to work on the leaves as well as the finials and that sort of thing, adding the different colors behind the main attractions there, and we will color those in a different media when we come back on Wednesday. Again, what my basic tip is here is use your palette. Put your paint on a palette, whether it's a clear one, whatever you want to put it on. Put your paint on a palette use a watercolor brush, whether it be one that produces the water for you, or whether or not you're dipping into a glass of water. Now, the watercolor brushes I have here are Caran d'Ache, and these ones here, they siphon the water and they spit it out, as you can see. Now, if you're going to use this type of brush, make sure that all the air is out of it before you use the brush. Otherwise, you're going to be pushing water through just with motion because of the pressure of the air. And sometimes you don't want that much water to go through. Try to keep your brush as dry as you'd like it. Test it on your hand. If it feels really, really wet, that's how it's going to feel on the paper. So if you don't want your paper to bubble, but you want to get the paint up, just make sure it's damp. If you need to put a little bit more water on your brush or on, to lift up the paint, put it directly on the paint and scrub it around and dry off the brush and pick it up with the brush. And try not to get the water flowing too much on your brush. But that's about it. Tape it down, make sure it's tight. Like I said, I didn't tighten this quite enough. Use a light board if you're going to use a picture behind it to trace, just so that you can see the lines that you're working with. I find it is one of the easiest things to use. You can get small ones, you can get big ones. This one here is quite a large one. I think it's a 10 by 9 or 10 by 12 by 10, I think is what it is. And it holds a proper sheet of paper. If you're using a coloring book page, put it behind it, just color as you would go through. If you're going to be using your own personal piece of art, you don't need to do this. Just tape it down to your hard surface so that it doesn't bubble. And I think that's about it, guys. Tempura paint is a tempura paint stick. Like I said, this stuff does dry really, really fast. I'm going to tell you what it says on the package as soon as I can find where I put the packages. Now, these packages do not have a lot of information. It says that it's a quick dry in under 2 minutes, wash with soap and water, instant application with no need for water. So what that means is what I did on this side of the leaf is you can color directly on whatever you're doing. So if you're doing an entire background, you can easily do that with this paint just straight from the stick. So you can go over an entire area straight from the stick and not add any water at all and blend it all together with the next color and so forth. And we might have enough time this month. I'm not quite sure when is the end of the month. So no, our next tips and tricks Tuesday is going to be on the 2nd. So we might work on that maybe on Saturday on the 27th and different things like that, and finish up this month with a big Saturday water festival or something. Just to show you all the little things that you can do with watercolors and with watercolor products dry. I have all different products that are water-based or can be used as a water-based color. For example, the King Art cream crayons, the other cream crayons, the AFAN cream crayons, these tempura sticks, things like that that can all be used dry, but also can be used wet. I also have different markers, different palettes of paints, different watercolor paint brushes that are already already have the paint in the brush. Things like that can all be used, and we'll take a look more at all of that on, I think Saturday would be a good day for that. Until Wednesday, we're going to continue to work on this, and then work in progress Wednesday. I will show you how to do a colored pencil over top of the watercolor. Until then, of course, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're not already a subscriber to the channel, please do hit the subscribe button. I do try to put out a video every day. And of course, except for Sunday. Sunday is a special day, and special videos go out on Sunday. So um, hit the bell. It does tell you whenever I do put up a video. Of course, leave me a comment if you enjoyed this video, or if you have anything specific that you would like to see. I would definitely be able to take a look at that and see if I have that ability. If you want to join us over on Facebook, please do. The Facebook link is below in the description area of this video and of all my videos. So please hit that link, fill out the application, and we will get you into the Facebook group as quickly as possible. Final disclaimer is, of course, I am an Amazon affiliate. So any Amazon links listed on this page or any of my other pages is an Amazon affiliate link. So I will receive a couple of pennies for the purchase you make if you hit the link. Those purchases, of course, those payments, of course, go towards the channel and helping support the channel and all of the content, as well as the contests and anything else that we have, shipping, that sort of thing. And I think that's about it for today, guys. Of course, last but not least is always remember to relax, color, and stay safe. I thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day and a fantastic evening. Of course, I will see you again tomorrow on Work in Progress Wednesday. Bye-bye for now.